Because on WKRP, I could I ate glazed donuts every morning, and then I ate chocolate malted milk balls all day long, and now.
Loni Anderson wasn't just a blonde bombshell or the star of WKRP in Cincinnati. She was a woman who endured heartbreak, reinvention, and silent battles most fans never knew about. Now, at 80, her story has come to a close. But how she spent her final years might surprise you. From glamorous red carpets to quiet mountain retreats, Loni built a life of resilience and legacy on her own terms. So what really happened in the end? And what did the world miss behind the smile? Let's take a closer look at her incredible final chapter. Long before she was the glamorous icon lighting up red carpets in Hollywood, Loni Anderson was just a shy, bright-eyed girl from St. Paul, Minnesota. Born Loni K. Anderson on August 5, 1945, her path to stardom seemed unlikely at first glance. Her father, Andy Anderson, was an environmental chemist, a man of science and precision. Her mother, Maxine, was a former model, elegant and poised. It was a household that blended intellect and glamour, a foreshadowing of Loni's future as both a brainy beauty and a bombshell. Growing up in the quiet suburb of Roseville, Loni's life was marked by modesty and Midwestern values. She wasn't raised among flashing cameras or celebrity circles. Instead, she spent her childhood in a world of PTA meetings, community fairs, and snow-covered sidewalks. But even as a teenager, there was something about her that stood out. She wasn't just pretty, she had presence. In 1963, during her senior year at Alexander Ramsey High School, she was voted Valentine's Day Winter Formal Queen, a small-town honor that hinted at the attention she would someday command on a much larger stage. What many don't know is that she nearly had a very different name. Her father had originally wanted to call her Leilani, a Hawaiian name meaning heavenly garland of flowers, but fearing that kids would twist it into cruel playground nicknames, he settled on Loni, a name that was simple, elegant, and uniquely hers. That anecdote, shared years later in her autobiography, My Life in High Heels, reveals a key theme of her early life: identity. Even before fame, Loni was navigating how to present herself to the world and learning how much control she actually had over that narrative. While most of her peers settled into quiet family lives after high school, Loni had her eyes set on something bigger. Her blend of beauty, intelligence, and natural charisma made her stand out in any room. And as we'll soon see, it wouldn't be long before Hollywood took notice. But even with stardom on the horizon, Loni's journey would be far from easy. By the time most aspiring actresses were flocking to Los Angeles in search of a breakout role, Loni Anderson had already taken a detour, one that would shape the rest of her life. In 1964, still in her teens and far from the bright lights of Hollywood, she married real estate developer Bruce Hasselberg. The marriage was short-lived, lasting just 2 years, but it would leave a lifelong impact, their daughter, Deidre. Becoming a mother so early was both a blessing and a challenge. Loni now had real responsibilities, and the stakes were higher than ever. She wasn't just chasing a dream anymore, she was building a future for two. But even with a baby in tow, she refused to give up on acting. She took on small roles in local commercials, theater productions, and print ads, gradually building a portfolio while still navigating single motherhood. Her big break wouldn't come until the 1970s, when her striking looks and impeccable comedic timing finally caught the attention of casting directors. Loni's beauty was often compared to that of Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield: platinum hair, a dazzling smile, and an hourglass figure that made her a perfect fit for the bombshell roles popular at the time. But what set her apart was that she had more than just looks. She had a sharp wit, a professional attitude, and a surprising resilience that few people saw coming. In 1974, she married again, this time to fellow actor Ross Bickle. Their relationship lasted 7 years, and for a while, it seemed Loni had finally found balance: a partner in the industry, a supportive home life, and a career that was just beginning to blossom. The pressures of working in Hollywood and maintaining a marriage in the public eye were beginning to wear on her. Eventually, she and Bickle divorced in 1981, leaving Loni once again single. But now she was also a rising star. Her big moment was just around the corner. And it would come with WKRP in Cincinnati, the show that made her a household name and changed her life forever. For years, Loni Anderson had been circling the fringes of stardom, but in 1978, everything changed. When WKRP in Cincinnati premiered on CBS, Anderson didn't just land a role. She became an icon. As Jennifer Marlowe, the sultry but whip-smart receptionist at a struggling radio station, she flipped the dumb blonde stereotype on its head. Viewers were instantly captivated, not just by her looks, but by the surprising depth and charm she brought to the role. It wasn't just the audience that noticed. Critics praised her comedic timing and understated elegance, and suddenly, Loni was one of the most talked-about women on television. She received 3 Golden Globe nominations and 2 Emmy nods during the show's 4-season run. For someone who had once juggled motherhood with minor guest roles, it was a full-blown transformation. But with fame came the pressures of being constantly in the spotlight. Loni was now on the covers of TV Guide and People, walking red carpets and navigating a world where personal privacy was nearly non-existent. Her every move, every outfit, every relationship, every public appearance was scrutinized, and yet she managed to carry herself with poise, rarely letting the tabloids shape her public image. Behind the scenes, things were more complicated. WKRP was a success, but it also came with long hours, typecasting fears, and a growing awareness that she would need to make careful choices to avoid becoming just another pretty face in Hollywood. Loni began turning down roles that felt one-dimensional, seeking instead parts that showcased her range. She was determined to prove that she was more than the character that had made her famous. And then came the headlines that would catapult her into an entirely new kind of fame, her whirlwind. The glamorous TV actress and the rugged movie star, both at the height of their fame, made for a power couple the media couldn't resist. They were on every magazine cover, the it couple of the 1980s, and their chemistry was undeniable. What started as a red carpet courtship quickly turned serious, and while the cameras captured every kiss and glance, no one knew what was truly unfolding behind closed doors. When Loni Anderson and Burt Reynolds tied the knot in 1988, it felt like Hollywood royalty had united. They were both household names. He, the rugged mustachioed box office titan of the 70s and early 80s. She, the blonde bombshell who had redefined the sitcom vixen. Their wedding, held in a private ceremony at Burt's Ranch in Jupiter, Florida, was intimate but heavily reported. Tabloids called it a fairy tale union, but behind the glitz, a storm was already gathering. At first, the couple played their parts flawlessly. They gave joint interviews, posed for glamorous photo shoots, and gushed about their love in glossy magazines. But it didn't take long for cracks to show. Loni later revealed that the marriage was troubled almost from the start. Burt, known for his charm and wit in public, reportedly became distant and, at times, verbally cruel behind closed doors. Anderson would later describe the relationship as emotionally draining, a stark contrast to their picture-perfect public image. In 1990, the couple adopted a son, Quentin. For a brief moment, it seemed like parenthood might soften the edges of their unraveling marriage. But instead of bringing them closer, it added more tension. Loni took her role as mother seriously, eager to give her son a stable and loving environment. But Burt's erratic behavior reportedly intensified. There were rumors of infidelity, verbal altercations, and even financial control. Anderson later accused him of withholding money and making her life a living nightmare. Then came the bombshell that changed everything. Burt filed for divorce in 1993. Not only did he make the announcement publicly, catching Anderson off guard, but he also aired their dirty laundry to the press. He accused Loni of being a bad mother, of overspending, and worse. It was a calculated move, one that turned public opinion against her, at least temporarily. Anderson was blindsided, not just by the divorce itself, but by the deeply personal accusations. She rarely responded publicly, choosing dignity over spectacle. But behind the scenes, a legal battle brewed over custody, alimony, and reputation. Burt, once her partner and protector, had become her most vocal critic. The divorce was finalized in 1994, and Anderson walked away, not just with custody of their son, but also with a monthly spousal support agreement and ownership of their North Carolina mountain retreat. But the damage to her image and her emotional well-being would take far longer to repair. After the bitter public fallout from her divorce with Burt Reynolds, Loni Anderson retreated, not just from the tabloids, but from the Hollywood scene itself. And in doing so, she found unexpected solace in one of the last places fans would expect, the quiet, wooded hills of North Carolina. During their marriage, Burt Reynolds had purchased a secluded mountain home in Flats Township near Highlands, North Carolina. While it was technically under his name, this retreat had been a shared sanctuary for the couple. Nestled deep within the Nantahala National Forest, the property was a world away from the chaos of red carpets and paparazzi. It was quiet, misty, and isolated, a place where time slowed down and Hollywood felt like another universe. What made this home different wasn't just its scenic beauty, it was what it came to represent. According to Loni's legal team, when the couple divided assets in their 1994 divorce, she specifically requested to keep the North Carolina home. That choice was telling. While Reynolds was surrounded by glitz in Florida and Beverly Hills, Loni wanted peace. She wanted a place where no one asked for autographs and no magazine spreads about her cabin in the woods. That was the point. In a world that had scrutinized her every move, from her relationships to her wardrobe, this little slice of earth gave her something she hadn't had in years: privacy. Although many of the details about her time in Highlands remain out of public view, what's clear is this home became a personal haven. Locals rarely saw her, and the property was never listed publicly. But those who did encounter her say she seemed relaxed and content, like someone who had finally stepped off the carousel. It's unclear how long Anderson kept the home. Some believe she may have quietly sold it years later, while others say she kept it until the very end. But what remains certain is this: the mountain retreat wasn't just a piece of real estate. It was a symbol of healing, of escape, and of finally reclaiming control after years of public spectacle. Just when the world thought Loni Anderson's story had quieted down, life surprised her once more, with a love story decades in the making. In 2008, Loni married Bob Flick, a founding member of the legendary folk band The Brothers Four. But this wasn't just another celebrity romance. This was a full-circle moment, nearly 45 years in the making. The two had first met in 1963 at a movie premiere in Minneapolis, long before Loni's star had risen and before Bob's band became a staple of American folk music. At the time, it was a fleeting encounter, brief, warm, and quickly lost to time. But in a twist that feels like something straight out of a Hollywood script, they crossed paths again decades later. By then, both had lived full lives. Loni had endured 3 marriages, raised children, faced scandal, and fought tirelessly for respect beyond her image. Bob had traveled the world with his band and witnessed the highs and lows of the music industry. They weren't the same people they'd been in 1963, and maybe that's what made it work. Their wedding wasn't a grand tabloid affair. Instead, it was intimate and deeply personal. Photos showed Loni glowing in a pale pink dress, a soft smile on her face, one that looked more peaceful than any red carpet grin. This wasn't about publicity or power couples. It was about something far more rare in Hollywood: a second chance at something real. Friends say Bob brought stability and warmth to Loni's life at a time when she needed it most. He wasn't chasing headlines or trying to build a brand. He was simply present. And after years of navigating public relationships filled with drama and pressure, that simplicity was everything. Their marriage also introduced a new dynamic into Loni's life, a quieter, more music-filled existence. With Bob still performing occasionally with the Brothers Four, Loni often joined him backstage or attended concerts incognito. It was a far cry from the world of sitcom sets and paparazzi flashbulbs, but she seemed to revel in it. It gave her a different stage, one where she didn't have to perform at all. Loni once said in an interview that Bob was her rock. And by all accounts, he remained just that throughout the final stretch of her life. A steady, loving presence who stood beside her not for who she was on screen, but for who she truly was off of it. Loni Anderson's public image was all about glamour. big hair, form-fitting gowns, and her unforgettable role as Jennifer Marlowe on WKRP in Cincinnati. But behind the sequins and TV smiles was a woman with a sharp sense for business and a relentless drive to secure her future. Most fans remember Loni's acting career peaking in the late 70s and early 80s, but what they may not realize is that she spent the decades after that quietly building and protecting a sizable fortune. While many celebrities burned through their earnings or faded into obscurity, Loni made strategic choices that ensured her financial comfort long after the spotlight dimmed. One major contributor to her wealth was smart real estate investing. Loni didn't just live in lavish homes. She understood the long-term value they held. In 2007, she purchased a custom-built Santa Barbara-style home in Sherman Oaks, California, through her Valley Vista Property Trust. The nearly $2 million investment wasn't just about luxury, it was about location, privacy, and long-term growth in one of LA's most desirable neighborhoods. The home included 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, and amenities tailored for entertaining, like a wine cooler, saltwater pool, spa, and butler's pantry. When she later sold the property in 2015, for well more than she had paid, it was a profitable and well-timed move. But that wasn't her only real estate win. During her marriage to Burt Reynolds, the couple also owned a sprawling Beverly Hills mansion and a secluded retreat in North Carolina. After their contentious 1994 divorce, Loni walked away with not just emotional scars, but serious assets. She kept the North Carolina vacation home and remained in the Beverly Hills property for some time, while also receiving a reported $15,000 per month in spousal support, equal to about $30,000 per month today. Her net worth wasn't built on television paychecks alone. Loni also published her autobiography, My Life in High Heels, in 1995. It gave her not just another revenue stream, but control over her own narrative at a time when tabloids thrived on scandal. She also stayed active with voiceover work, guest appearances, and speaking engagements well into her later years, each one chosen carefully and compensated accordingly. Even as her public appearances became rare, Loni was never financially desperate. She lived comfortably and gracefully, having built a nest egg not just through fame, but through focus. She didn't just survive Hollywood, she outsmarted it. As Loni Anderson entered her later years, she didn't fade away. She simply stepped back. Gone were the red carpets and tabloid headlines. In their place, quiet mornings, family gatherings, and a life centered on peace and purpose. After decades in the public eye, Loni finally embraced what she had spent years building, a stable, fulfilling, private life. Though she was no longer a constant presence on television, Loni never truly retired. She made occasional appearances in shows and interviews, carefully choosing when and where to step back into the spotlight. But the focus had clearly shifted. What mattered most to her now wasn't fame, it was family. She remained incredibly close to her children, Deidre, her daughter from her first marriage, and Quentin, the son she adopted with Burt Reynolds. Quentin had always been a central part of her life. Even after her divorce from Reynolds, Loni prioritized co-parenting and maintaining a stable, loving environment for him. As Quentin grew into adulthood, he stayed mostly out of the public eye, just as his mother had hoped. Anderson's final marriage, to Bob Flick of the folk band The Brothers Four, was also a source of deep joy and stability. Married in 2008, the two shared a quiet life built on mutual respect, decades of friendship, and a kind of ease that had eluded her in earlier relationships. Their love story wasn't splashed across magazine covers, it was lived in shared laughter, quiet support, and a return to something simpler. During these years, Loni also became more open about the causes close to her heart. She supported COPD awareness after her parents' health struggles and used her platform to raise awareness for issues affecting aging women in Hollywood, particularly the pressure to stay forever young in an industry that often discards older actresses. Even in her quiet years, she used her voice. Her home remained a sanctuary, whether in Sherman Oaks, North Carolina, or wherever she happened to be. Surrounded by warmth and beauty, her daily life reflected everything she had worked toward: privacy, dignity, and the ability to choose how her story would be told. In the end, Loni Anderson didn't vanish. She simply stepped away from the noise, and those who knew her best say she was happier for it. Her final years were marked not by loneliness or regret, but by presence. She was there for her family, for herself, and for a legacy far deeper than what the screen ever showed. Loni Anderson's legacy is far richer than any single image of glamour or any one role she played. Yes, she was the blonde bombshell with the million-dollar smile. Yes, she turned heads in her curve-hugging dresses and silenced rooms when she walked in, but to define her by that alone is to miss the heart of who she truly was. What Loni leaves behind is not just a legacy of beauty, but of resilience, reinvention, and grace under pressure. Her portrayal of Jennifer Marlowe on WKRP in Cincinnati gave audiences more than just eye candy. She flipped the dumb blonde stereotype on its head. Her character was sharp, witty, and unapologetically smart. And behind the scenes, Loni fought to ensure she wasn't reduced to just another pretty face. She negotiated her salary, pushed for better scripts, and refused to be sidelined. In doing so, she helped shift perceptions of what women, especially beautiful women, in Hollywood could be. But her impact wasn't limited to TV. Loni's openness about the struggles in her personal life, especially her divorce from Burt Reynolds, offered a rare glimpse into the vulnerability and strength behind the spotlight. She didn't pretend everything was perfect. She showed the cracks, the heartbreak, the real pain behind the glossy photos. And for many fans, that honesty made her even more beloved. She was also one of the few women in Hollywood who aged on her own terms. While others chased youth with increasingly drastic measures, Loni embraced her age while still maintaining her signature elegance. She became a symbol of aging with dignity, showing that sex appeal and self-worth don't have an expiration date. Her advocacy for chronic illness awareness, especially COPD, helped give voice to millions affected by the condition, including those who never thought someone as glamorous as Loni Anderson could understand their struggle. That contrast between red carpet royalty and real-world empathy was part of what made her so unique. And then there's her role as a mother. Despite her fame, Loni prioritized being present for her children. Her bond with Dedra and Quentin was central to her identity. She shielded them from the chaos of Hollywood, gave them stability, and quietly supported them without making headlines. In a world obsessed with celebrity parenting scandals, Loni's quiet commitment stood out. Ultimately, her legacy isn't just about what she did, it's about how she did it. With grace, with resilience, with heart. She reminded us that being a star isn't just about being seen, it's about shining even when no one's looking. When news broke that Loni Anderson had passed away at 80, the response was immediate and emotional. Across social media, news outlets, and fan forums, an outpouring of love and remembrance flooded in from around the world. For many, it felt like the end of an era. Loni hadn't just been a TV star, she had been a symbol of a more glamorous, yet deeply human Hollywood. Her children, Dedra and Quentin, released a joint statement shortly after her passing. It was simple, heartfelt, and powerful. Our mother lived with grace, strength, and love. She was our hero, on and off screen. They spoke of her as someone who always made time for family, who celebrated life's small victories, and who never let fame eclipse kindness. Their words painted a portrait of a woman who was as warm at home as she was dazzling in the spotlight. Her husband, Bob Flick, who had shared the last decades of her life, chose to grieve privately. But insiders close to the family described his heartbreak as quiet but profound. Their love story, which began in the early 1960s and rekindled decades later, had always felt like something out of a movie, complete with a full-circle ending. They were soulmates, and in the end, she died with him by her side. Tributes came pouring in from Hollywood too. Jane Seymour, Suzanne Summers, and even younger stars like Kaylee Cuoco acknowledged how Loni had paved the way for smart, sexy female characters. She wasn't just the blonde bombshell, one director wrote. She was the woman who made sure the bombshell had something to say. A private funeral was held in California. It was small, just close friends and family, but the atmosphere was rich with stories, laughter, and tears. One guest described it as exactly how Loni would have wanted it, classy, heartfelt, and full of love. Her ashes were scattered over a spot in the North Carolina mountains. near the retreat she once shared with Burt Reynolds. That quiet corner of the world had always been special to her, away from the cameras, away from the noise, just peace. In the days that followed, fans began leaving flowers on the WKRP and Cincinnati Hollywood Walk of Fame star. A few even dressed up as Jennifer Marlowe, wearing replicas of her iconic red dresses and wide smile. It was a reminder that Loni wasn't just remembered, she was celebrated. And in one final twist of fate, sales of her autobiography, My Life in High Heels, surged after her passing. New generations discovered her story, and older fans revisited it, realizing just how much of her strength had been hidden behind the Hollywood polish. She wasn't just a survivor, she was a trailblazer. In the end, Loni Anderson's passing wasn't just the loss of a star, it was the farewell of a woman who, despite the glitz and chaos of Hollywood, managed to live with heart. Her story wasn't always easy, but it was hers, and she owned every chapter. Drop a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more forgotten Hollywood tales.